Hey everyone, George here, and welcome back to the channel. So today we're going to do something a little bit different. We're actually going to just go around and give an update on many of the fish tanks that I have here in my office or around my home. There's been some changes made on many tanks that I just haven't been able to film simply because of all of the things that have been going on in our world with the COVID thing and the social unrest over the unfortunate circumstances that we find ourselves in, which I don't want to get into and be political about because that's not what this channel's for. But I just thought it would be a great opportunity to go around and sort of give you an update on any tanks that changes have been made over the last month or two that we haven't really talked about. There's certain tanks that I know we've built, and there's been videos of unboxings and things like that. But this is a sort of an in-depth look at some of the tanks that I have and what's been done to them, whether it be rescaping, just subtle changes made with plants, or livestock changes of some sort. So I hope you'll join me. I hope you'll enjoy this video, and we'll try to make it as interesting as I possibly can. And all along the way, we'll talk about different things that you might want to have some ideas on. They're going to help you to create that perfect fish tank for yourself, and I hope you'll join me. We're going to get to that right now. So one of the first tanks that we're going to talk about is this Fiji Cube Peninsula tank, which is a 38 gallon. And there hasn't been a lot of changes made to this tank since I set it up here about 6 or 8 months ago. There have been a few additions to the tank. The original fish that were in here, of course, were the angels, the cardinals, the Harlequin rasboras, and some of the Cory fish. But I did add over time, I believe there are 2 German blue rams in here and 2 golden rams as well. Both South American fish, so they get along fine. There's a little bit of territorial stuff that goes on with them, but it's nothing that is concerning to me as far as the concern of the fish themselves. I also have in here a pleco that sort of keeps everything nice and tidy, and a couple of auto cichlids. But the Cories you see in here, they tend to hide when you turn the light on. I do notice that they're all in here at night. I have 3 panda Cories in here, 3 or 4. I think there's actually 4. And I do have 2 pygmy Cories in here. Now the pygmy Cories I didn't see for a very long time, and I wasn't sure what happened to them. But I have noticed that when I come down early in the morning and turn the lights on, or come down in the evening after the lights have been out for a while, shine light in here, as you can see, the pygmy Cories are in here and they're doing just fine. I was concerned about the amount of food that they get more than anything because of the amount of fish that are in here. It's not overpopulated, but because of the amount of fish in here and how much they eat, I was concerned that the pygmy Cories were not getting enough food, but that's not the case. They've all done really, really well as far as finding enough food. And one of the tricks to that is to make sure that you are dropping in the tank at night after the lights go out for several hours. You want to make sure that you're dropping in maybe some protein / algae tablets. The Cories love those. They will go after them and they will feed off those during the evening, and that seems to be their main source of food, that you're sure that they're getting fed. So I've done that. That's been a good habit that I've gotten myself into doing, just to make sure that these fish are doing fine and that they're healthy. So that's worked out really good. And that is something that I have learned as a nice trick if you want to try it to make sure your cories stay healthy. There are, like I said, 3 or 4 panda cories in here. I don't see them right now. For some reason, the pygmy cories that are never out are out and about at the bottom there, as you can see, and the panda cories, which are out usually all day long, I'm not seeing at all. So I don't know why that is, but I know that they're okay in here because when I first turned the light on before I started filming, I saw all 4 of them out and about here in the front of the tank, and they were just sort of grazing around like cories do. And the big change that's coming to this tank is I will be removing the angelfish from this tank, as well as the German blue rams, as well as the golden rams, and they will be replaced by some discus fish, which I already have on order and should be getting within the next 2 to 3 weeks. They're growing out right now, and not quite ready to go into this tank, but this is a perfect tank for them. And I've never tried discus before because I've been a little bit reluctant, but I am going to try them. And so really that's pretty much all that I wanted to say about this particular tank. I think it's a beautiful tank. I love the way it was set up. I've never really wanted to change anything in here because it's grown out so beautifully and it looks so nice. And pretty much other than the stock change in here, there won't be any structural changes as far as hardscape or anything like that. This is a tank that I often talk about. This is a top fin 5-gallon retreat, and I have featured this several times over the last couple of years. In fact, I did quite a unboxing of this and reveal of this tank, probably a year or so ago, and it really has gotten a lot of attention because I think this is quite a popular tank. You can buy this tank pretty much at PetSmart for sometimes $39.99. It regularly retails at around $59.99. But what I have done to this tank is made a few modifications. Other than the original, well, actually there's been a lot done to this tank, so I'll start from the beginning on it. The modifications that I made on this tank basically are on the filtration side of things. I did add to the carbon filter in the back of the tank in this area in here and behind. I did add some bags of charcoal slash ceramic to help with the filtration of it, as well as a little bit of a sponge filtration as well. So that keeps this thing pristine and does a really good job of keeping the filtration top notch. So other than that, the lighting on here has been changed. Now, I raved about the lighting on this tank when I first got it because I really thought that the amount of light that it gave off as far as helping the plants grow and that sort of thing was truly amazing for the price of this tank. And one of the things that I did notice over time, though, was that I was getting a little bit of an algae buildup that I was concerned about. So I did reduce that lighting down to a more sophisticated lighting system that I can control with my phone, or an app on my phone, I should say, that helps to make sure that the lighting in here is brought down enough to where it's not so intense that these low light plants that are in this tank do not get overwhelmed and become packed with algae. So I have done that, and the light is actually made by Cobalt, and I don't know the actual name of the light, but I do know that it is a very sophisticated light that has made this tank really a lot better to deal with because of our ability to control it a little bit more. I do regular water changes in this tank at least a couple of times a week, just to make sure that everything stays in really, really good shape, and keep the fish in here, you know, in the best water quality conditions that they can be in. Now, these fish in here are temporary. As you can see, this is a little bit overstocked for the size of the tank. The Serpae tetras in here, the longfin Serpae tetras, I should say, are just a temporary, because this is a holding tank basically, just to make sure that they're healthy and don't have any problems with ick or anything like that. Now, the supplier that I get them from, generally I can trust, and I don't worry so much about that. But in this particular case, I just always put fish in a quarantine area before I add them to a regular tank, to make sure that we're not going to have problems that you know, I would overlook or something like that. So I always try to put as much of my fish in a quarantine type situation as I can, just to make sure that they are healthy before they go into the community tank. So I don't want people sending me comments saying, well, you know, this tank is really overpopulated and you shouldn't have that many fish in there. I know that, I'm well aware of it. It's just a temporary situation. What you're seeing in here is the Serpae tetras, as I said, the longfin Serpae tetra. We also got some Julie cories in here. There should be 4 of those in here, which keep the bottom nice and clean. And then there is also just 1 albino pleco in here that is also you know, there to keep all the plants and everything kind of cleaned up. And between the 3, does a great job. Now, snails as well are in here. I think there's either 2 or 3 snails in here. And between the pleco and the snails and the cories keeping the bottom clean, it really does do a pretty good job of making sure that the tank is in top-notch shape. So, like I said, I do, because of this being a temporary tank or a holding tank, a quarantine tank, whatever you want to call it, I do frequent water changes in here, probably 3 a week in here, about a half. Which in a 5-gallon tank doesn't take very long at all. So it's something that I've just felt that is important, and something that I do. And so therefore, the fish have been staying really healthy, and everything's good in this tank. So that's it for the 5-gallon top fin retreat tank. As I said, quite a few modifications over time on this tank. In fact, the whole scape was redone on this in the last couple of months, and doesn't look anything like the original scape here. So we'll talk about this one again in the future as things change and progress with it, but that's really the only changes for now. The 5-gallon Aquatop Pisces series. Now, if many of you follow me quite closely, you'll know that I have done several reviews on this particular tank, and it's one of my favorites. The reason for that is the filtration system that comes with it and the light that comes with it are really second to none. They're just absolutely a fantastic system that I really have found is the best you can find out there, just to unbox something and to, you know, use it right away. If you're a beginner in the hobby and you're looking for a great little nano-sized tank, this little 5-gallon Pisces series is really amazing. Now, they do come in 2 different sizes. You do have the Pisces Cube, and you also have the Pisces Peninsula. They're both 5-gallon, the Peninsula being just a little bit longer of a tank and narrower, but it gives a little bit more room for fish that like to run, and that is something that I really, really enjoy about these tanks, is they really have a lot of room in them. Even though there is a built-in filtration system that's a three-stage system, that's one of the things that I like about this tank a lot. It does take up a little bit of room inside the tank, but it's not enough to really make it a problem. Of course, you know, if you can get an outside system with just some hoses coming in, that's great. But for something as small as this, that's a 5-gallon, that's just really overkill. You don't need it. I love these tanks. I can't say enough about them. This particular tank, as you can see, is quite overgrown with plants, and the reason for that is that I do use this tank to harvest a lot of plants for my new aquariums, a lot of the repens down here at the bottom, and on this side over here, they go all the way back in the system, and I do often clip those and use the clippings from those as starts in new aquariums that I'm building, and they work great for that. There's also some repens in here that have some nice shoots that come off them, and I'm able to harvest some of those as well. And I could just go on and on with the different kind of plants that are in here, but I don't want to waste a bunch of time doing that. Now, one of the plants that can get out of hand in here, and is getting out of hand in this particular tank, which I'm going to take care of over the next few days, is the water lettuce. What happens typically with the water lettuce is you get a situation where the roots get so long on there, especially if it's a very healthy tank. The roots will get very long on here, and they'll hang down, and so then they kind of don't allow the plant itself to move, because they sort of get hung up in the taller plants that are in here. So you will have to trim the bottoms of those off quite frequently. I would say once a month or something like that. Otherwise, they get extremely long and they become a real problem with them moving around. But as far as the health of this tank goes, it's a fantastic tank. I love it. I can't really say enough about it. I will, like I said, attach a link to this video regarding this particular tank where I have reviewed it in the past, and that'll give you an opportunity to see this tank, you know, and how it all completely functions. As I said, it's a three-stage system. You have ceramic, you have the charcoal, and you have a sponge system in here, which I really, really like. I think it just offers up clean, clear, beautiful water, and that's kind of what we're always looking for, of course. And other than the plants being a little bit overgrown in this particular tank, which I said is on purpose because I do harvest these plants, other than that, this tank is just one of my favorites. And you'll see as we go through this video that I do have several of these. So, or I have, if I don't have the tank itself outright, you'll see that I've added the filtration system that comes with these tanks to other tanks. In fact, I've done that quite a bit, so I may mention that as we go through all these, and you'll notice that that filtration system is being used quite a bit with many of my tanks. That's about it for this one. If you want to know more about this particular tank, as I said, I will attach a link for you that gives you that full review of the tank, and you can get all your questions answered there. This particular tank here is a Cobalt 5-gallon cube. It is a low iron tank, so that's why you see such clarity with this particular tank. It's one of my favorite tanks in the sense that it is crystal clear. Cobalt does make some really, really nice stuff. A couple of the things that I did not like about this tank, and I did change over time, is you'll notice that in the back I did add the AquaTop 5-gallon filtration system to this tank. just because the one that came with it, the filtration system that came with it, was not something I liked. Plus, it did not come with a light that was controllable, so I really had a lot of problems with that light, keeping it where I wanted it to be as far as the intensity and that sort of thing. So with this particular system, I didn't keep the light that came with the Aquatop. I added it to it. I just took the tank itself, and I'm using it somewhere else with another system. But I did add this to this, and that is the main change really that came with this particular tank. Now, this is sort of a southwestern type look tank here. I do not have a black background on here yet because during this lockdown and quarantine and with all the other social issues that we're having around the country, it's been hard to get stuff. I do have some background that I am ordering. There's a lot of temptation to paint the backs of these, but that can become a problem in itself. If you decide you don't like the color or you want to change it, it's really hard to get that paint off there. So I've never really thought of that as a great idea to do with a tank. Some people do it and they do just fine. I don't have any problems with people that do that. I'm just basically saying that I don't like to do it because of those reasons. And I think that if you look at this tank, once it does have the black background on it, you're going to see that it's really going to blend in nicely. Hopefully that'll come in the next few days and I'll be able to add it. There really isn't anything in here except for 5 Priscilla Tetras, 2 Pygmy Cories, some snails, a couple of auto cichlids, and 1 electric blue ram in here. Now that electric blue ram is only in here because I had him in with some other rams, and he was sort of being picked on, and I really, because they're an expensive fish, I just didn't want to see him have problems over the long term. So I did remove him and put him in here, and he's done really well in this particular tank. So as far as the changes in this tank, there really hasn't been many other than, taking the original filtration out of here, adding the Aquatop 5-gallon Pisces system in here along with the light, and that has really made this tank a very stable tank, and it looks really great. And I think once, like I said, I get the background on here, the black background, you won't even see that black filtration in here any longer. It'll blend right in just like it does with all the tanks that I have put it on. So anyways, that's all I really have to say about Cobalt. They make really good products. Not real fond of their filtration, as I said, but as far as the glass and the system itself, the height of this cube I like. Gives the fish who are top feeders, middle feeders, and bottom feeders all their own space, and so I really like that about it. So if you like Cobalt, here you go. Here's a great little tank for you. It's a 5-gallon cube. I don't think they have a particular name to it. If they do, I don't know it, but you can easily find it online. If you just look up a Cobalt 5-gallon cube, you'll find that it's pretty easily something you can find online. Now these retail for around $80 with the original filtration system. Of course, I'm not using that particular filtration system in this tank, and that would come with something a little bit different. You might be able to handle that filtration system that comes with it, but for me it just didn't work out too well, and I didn't really like the lighting that came with it either. So there's been quite a few changes made on that. Other than that, great little tank. I really love it, and again, crystal clear because of the low iron glass, and I really like that.